So Sarath, thanks for joining us today at ADAPT's 10th Connected, thank you, Cloud and Data Centre Edge event here in Sydney. And today's theme is leading modernisation and balancing complexity while ensuring compliance. Thinking about your role and the operations you oversee, what does that theme mean to you?
Multiple things. Complexity, I think, always stayed. That's something that I fundamentally believe it changed its dimension. But I think what's more important to acknowledge today is that gone are the days when we were monolithic, having one big application that you could outsource and give it to somebody and make it somebody's headache. The organization can't do that anymore because they need to come back to modular solutions because the startups are scaring them, because they're getting to a point where they're serving the customer faster than the big companies. So the journey is quite different now. It's all modularized and distributed. So that adds to the complexity. The problem is getting to the governance aspect of it. The organizations have to learn. We all are learning, but I think they still have to learn to get to a point where they actually can manage that complexity. And it probably will become the norm in the next coming years.
And managing complexity and simplification seems like the watchword of the day. And as I understand it, there's certain parts of your organisation that you're now exiting the data centre. Where did the initiative come from? Why was it important? And who was involved?
So my boss, my team managers, all of us were involved 4 years back. Is when I actually coincidentally joined Boral as well. So we had a very critical problem back then when we had aging infrastructure, applications were having a lot of downtime, was impacting business. So like any other organization back then, we had to pick a problem statement. And one of the solution path was obviously transforming our infrastructure to a modern path. We had options to physically upgrade it, and the second option was to go cloud. Obviously, cloud make a better sense because we had the powers which we can get in our hands to control the operational expenditure then. So it was mainly around the business challenges that we were facing back then to make sure that IT does give them the enough support.
So improving resilience, reducing the noise from the business, if you like, and delivering better value, perhaps faster and in a more transparent way. And then as you were going along the journey towards the cloud, what were some of the key steps in getting into those operations and perhaps some of the challenges and lessons learned along the way?
So the challenges are multi, and it did add up to the complexity with all the pandemic and the global recession that we had a bit with the pandemic. The main challenges were obviously to get out to the business and convey the value. Was a hard story to sell initially. Obviously, these things do cost quite a lot for the companies. So getting out there and communicating and giving them the reason why we're doing was quite a big challenge. And once you're through that, I guess one of the roadblock is gone. But then it comes to the part of the legacy applications. They're not easy to move. I don't think there are enough technologies around today where you can just throw them into the cloud space. So you have to work one after the other. Individual application has individual solutions. And you got to basically decide between whether you're going to transform the application, whether you're going to retire the application, or whether you're going to do a lift and shift. So between these three categorizations, you got to figure out where each application goes, consult your business stakeholders, make them go through the journey. They don't like disruption. But end of the day, you got to remember the big picture where the total value to the organization is quite significant, which is what we need to go back and,
Fantastic. And I think, just sort of touching on some of those themes as well. So being very deliberate about the applications you're turning off or changing or going cloud native in sounds to have been one of the key reasons for your success. But also I imagine the talent angle as well. So can you talk a little bit to the kinds of talent and approaches to upskilling your internal team as you went through this journey?
Talent is a very big challenge, and especially when we started back in 2018, obviously zero talent in the organization. nobody was cloud certified or anybody who's done cloud before. But I guess it was a common problem for everyone though, right? So I see it as very differently. So you always have the same problem with any evolving technology. You got 70 people who can do the job, 20% who are a little smarter, and 10% your guns. So I guess we need to acknowledge the change. So we actually tapped into a couple of vendors who actually could provide us that premium, who has actually done the technology, and packed them with the mix of internal resources who actually had the IP of the business and how this data center works. So in a combination of that, we've been upfront with our vendors to make sure that they're very clear that they're not here forever, but they are going to help us through the journey. And with a mix of them, I think now we're at a point in time, most of the work is done by the internal team as opposed to the partner. So I think it's been a 3-year journey, but we made sure that nothing beats the on-job training, no matter how many certifications one does. So we made sure that the partner actually kept helping us, and we made sure that our development plan was quite solid enough during this transformation journey.
So it's not just getting the muscle power, if you like, to get that particular project done, but it's also taking maybe a product kind of mindset to bring your people along the transformation at the same time as you were bringing the systems along the transformation.
I cannot insist how important it is, Shane. The reason being because the loyalty does come into a factor here, because a lot of these hot skills, we all are aware of the great recession that's underway at the moment, but if we can define that sense of purpose and sense of belonging to the people who've been loyal to the organization, nothing beats it. They stay along for long.
Absolutely, and that purpose leads to experience, that experience leads to team cohesion as well, and that kind of then brings you to that delivery model as well. So I don't want to give it a label, but I'll do so anyway. So lots of people are looking at DevOps, ways of delivering value faster and being more aligned with the business. As you went through this transformation, were you thinking about those delivery model changes, or did you think about it in a different way?
I think we had to split it in two parts, right? So there is the dev and innovation team where we want them to focus and utilize the platform with the DevOps part, getting the application teams much closer to the infrastructure. We are blurring the lines between infra and app, where the application teams can take control of their infrastructure, start and restart their stuff without raising a change request and going back to the backend team. So I guess that was definitely part of the value set, right? The time to serve, the flexibility of it, making sure that they're accountable for their cost to reduce the operation cost of their application product set. I guess this definitely were the benefits and the reasons why we went there. But at the same time, simplifying the landscape, making it easy to the business, and beating the main legacy problem that most of the organization facing was one of the fundamental reasons we accelerated the pace at which we wanted to do this.
And also, while I'm hearing you talk about those costs, those efficiencies that you're finding, those benefits as well, it kind of brings to mind the funding model changes that are needed as organizations go into cloud operations. Did you find that you needed to move away from those static funding gates to more of a reservoir style, dynamic way of funding these things?
It's a big change. To be honest, it's been a very tough journey, because obviously I see IT has two main customers, right? One is the real customer who consumes our product, so we've got to serve the teams who serve the customers of the company. And the other set of stakeholders are the shareholders. They are more worried about the money, making sure there's good ROI. So to make sure that that both the stakeholders are happy, it is important to keep eye on these financial models. And it's also a journey for our finance colleagues to understand that it's not a one-time set and forget type cost anymore in IT. It's more of a consumption basis. The problem with the consumption basis is that nobody likes uncertainty. It could be a different number tomorrow. It could be a completely different number the day after. So we need to play along quite creatively here and give them the box and the framework that we will operate in, and give them the confidence that when the Christmas comes, when the Easter comes, you actually can drive the cost down, because you can shed your 80% of your workloads. So that those certain events can actually trigger the confidence in them. But yeah, we are changing definitely. We were capital intensive before and running a depreciation cycle for the next 5 years. Now we actually are just spending money in an OPEX nature, because most of the cost actually just goes like your electricity bill, like a utility bill. It's a fundamental difference, and a lot of education to many stakeholders in the organization.
And that utility has facility when you're trying to drive change across the organization, but also delivering new products as well. So We've talked about some of the cost benefits. We've talked about some of those stakeholder benefits as well. What are some of the other benefits in terms of experience, ability to serve your market? Are there other outcomes you've reached?
Absolutely. I mean, we've touched upon it, but as I said, right, I define the cloud transformation in two parts. One is the hard part, one is the fun part. So we actually consider ourselves almost done with the hard part, which was to actually migrate and get to a platform where everything is in the cloud. Now the fun part is where actually a lot of the DevOps engineers and everybody starts having fun. You can pick up small use cases. Now spinning up servers or writing a piece of code doesn't take this long. So it's the fun part is what we are focusing now for the journey onwards here. We've done some, but definitely that was not the key focus for the last year because we were getting the flag end of exiting the data center. It did take our own resourcing effort that was required to go into it. But yeah, now we're actually set for to do the fun part of it, which is to develop and co-develop and innovate.
I like that, doing the fun part, removing toil, as it were, and allowing your people to deliver that value. And if you were to leave one message with the Adapt community, what would it be?
I think it's doable. I think one message that I commonly come across that it's too hard. But I truly believe that if you have the support of your executive and you can bring the right culture in the organization within your team, make them believe that we actually can transform completely into the cloud. Yes, I just want to say that it is doable. We just got to think creatively in terms of finance models, think a different way. How do you manage your talent? And I guess technology probably is the easier bit of the whole component of this transformation.